Secrets lie deep in Savannah. A tale of betrayal, retaliation, and the final justice. Introduction. A lifetime shock. 150 words. I never imagined that my husband would betray me in such a way. However, there I stood, gazing at the airline tickets in my husband's palm, in the center of our magnificent Savannah, Georgia, family estate. "You're staying behind," Ethan replied icily. "You must look after Claudia during our absence." His sister Claudia is silent and confined to a wheelchair. While Ethan put in long hours at his real estate enterprise, I had been taking care of this one for years. "It's just a week," his mother said, her voice as smooth as steel. "She has faith in you. Furthermore, you are ultimately responsible for her." Then they vanished. They left me behind and headed to Hawaii, enjoying cocktails on the beach. However, Claudia sat up in bed as I turned to see how she was doing. Then she said something. "Pack your bags, Claire," she smirked. "We're going to Hawaii too." The Weight of Responsibility, Chapter 1, 520 words. There was an unsettling silence in the home as soon as the front door banged shut. They had vanished. I was left behind as my husband, Ethan Montgomery, his mother, and their ideal little circle of deceit went to Hawaii and sipped champagne at a 5-star resort. Ethan had said, "Take care of Claudia," and left. "You're responsible for her. Don't mess it up." Claudia. His sister remained paralyzed and silent. While Ethan was building his real estate business and his mother was criticizing everything I did, I spent the last 4 years of my life taking care of, cooking for, dressing, and even bathing this woman. I exhaled deeply and tried to settle myself by putting my hands on the kitchen counter. There was nothing I could do. This mess was my husband's fault. Or so I believed. Then I heard it from the bedroom. A sound. The bed springs creaked. There was a sound of fabric rustling. I pivoted. Claudia's room had a slightly open door. Thereafter, she left. She didn't wheel. Not crawling. Strolling. She was on her own. My world tipped, and I gasped, clutching the counter. She rolled her neck and stretched languidly. Then, she said, "Pack your bags, Claire," with effortless ease. "We're going to Hawaii, too." I blinked. What I was seeing was too much for my mind to comprehend. "You can talk?" I muttered. "And walk," she remarked, grinning. I felt everything break inside of me. I have endured years of fatigue, nights without sleep, cleaning her garments, feeding her with a spoon. She is being treated as if she were a child. Was she playing pretend? I sprang for her. "Do you have any idea?" She interrupted me by raising a hand. "Calm down. I can clarify." Fury searing beneath my skin, I inhaled deeply. "You better start talking." She looked at me knowingly. "I will tell you all about it. However, first." She picked up a black leather duffel bag as she turned to face the bedroom. "We have a flight to catch." I scowled. How much time had she spent organizing this? "I'm not moving an inch until you tell me what the hell is going on," I said. As though I were an impatient child, she let out a sigh and shook her head. "Fine." Then she murmured something that chilled my blood as she drew closer. "Ethan isn't who you think he is." I gazed at her. "He's cheating, isn't he?" At last, I said. She gave a somber laugh. "Oh, my dear. That's only the start." My palms clenched into fists as I gulped. I said in a whisper, "You knew." "Of course," was all she said. "But believe me, he's not merely unfaithful to you. He intends to destroy you." I felt a searing pain in my chest. "What do you mean?" She let out a breath. "After we arrive, I'll tell you everything. However, you will lose everything if you remain here." I paused. My rational side cried out that the woman was crazy. My skin crawled, though, because of the way she spoke, so confident, so serene. At last, I reached for my bag. "Let's go." After 30 minutes, we were rushing to the airport in a black town car. Claudia had reserved 2 tickets in first class. For her, 1 is enough. "I'll take 1. I looked over at her. "Who bought these?" She just grinned. And I knew in my heart that the present was only the beginning. Chapter 2. The Big Disclosure. 520 words. Claudia turned to face me, her eyes shining with a mixture of playfulness and something else, something darker, just as the jet had leveled out at cruising altitude. "Ready for the truth," she said in a cool, collected tone. I crossed my arms. "I've been waiting." Leaning closer, she let out a deep exhale. I never remained silent. Never immobilized. The words struck me hard. My heart raced. "You're joking." She grinned. "Do I look like I'm joking?" I struggled to find the right words. For years, I had pushed her wheelchair, advocated for her, and sacrificed my life to care for her. Why the hell would you pretend? My voice trembled with rage. "Because it kept me safe," she explained. My nails were digging into the leather as I gripped the armrest tightly, breathing heavily now. "Safe from what?" She tapped the screen of her phone after taking it out. A tape began to play. I heard the voice of Ethan. "She is a moron. She genuinely believes that I adore her. But let's face it, she's just a handy babysitter." Laughter. "Well, his mother said we needed someone. She won't receive anything at all after the divorce is finalized. She can crawl back to her starting point." More giggling. I had the impression that I was dropping through a gaping abyss. My throat constricted. I muttered, "They planned this." Claudia gave a nod. From the start. The betrayal rubbed at my chest. I wanted to yell, smash something, and burn the stupid jet down. Rather, I inhaled slowly, my breath trembling. "How long have you known?" "A year," she said candidly. "And you didn't tell me?" She stared at me without flinching. "Would you have believed me?" My mouth opened, then closed. "No, I wouldn't have." "Then no." The decision was made without first listening to Ethan's own remarks, which were brimming with dishonesty. Her eyebrow went up as she said, "You still want to go to Hawaii?" I imagined Ethan and his new mistress enjoying cocktails on the beach. He thought of his calculations, his hubris, and his arrogant little sneer. A chilly smile slowly appeared on my lips. "Oh, hell yes." Claudia filled in the blanks for the remainder of the flight. Lies and deceit were the foundation of Ethan's real estate business. He has been using shell corporations to transfer funds while hiding his activities with fictitious financial statements. It had involved his mother. His investors had, too. What was the actual shock? The father of Claudia had been observing. Her father had actual power, old money, strong connections, and influence that Ethan was unaware of, unlike his gold-digging ex-wife. Claudia stated, he has been anticipating the appropriate time to end the relationship. As I gazed at her, a realization struck me. "And we're the match he's going to light?" She grinned more broadly. "Exactly." With my heart pounding, I reclined in my chair. Ethan was unaware of what was about to happen to him, and I would relish every moment of it. Betrayal revealed in Chapter 3, 520 words. My heart was racing as I watched Ethan lift his glass in the beautiful sunset at the Four Seasons Resort in Maui. A young brunette, his new mistress, sat beside him, dressed in diamonds, with her manicured hand resting possessively on his arm. To new beginnings, Ethan toasted, grinning at me with the same endearing grin. His mother's smug smile was filled with joy as she clinked her glass with his. I took a step forward. "Hope I'm not interrupting." The whole table went cold. Ethan's jaw dropped open as his head jerked in my direction. His mother's wine glass broke against the tablecloth after slipping out of her hands. "Sickler?" Ethan's voice was barely audible as he mumbled. I grinned, extending the moment, making them perspire. Surprised, I slipped my phone onto the immaculate white table and inquired naively. I hit play after that. Via the covert audio I had grabbed from Claudia's phone, Ethan's voice filled the quiet dinner table. "She is foolish. She believes that I married her out of love, but all I needed was someone to look after Claudia." The influential investors gathered around him and let out gasps. The mistress tensed up. The voice of his mother then came. "She is a burden. However, she is at least helpful. We'll make sure she leaves with nothing after the divorce is finalized." The restaurant fell silent. As they laughed about it, the recording continued to play, revealing their ruthless, heartless plan to destroy me. "If necessary, we'll make up an explanation. You'll be free after she leaves." "Ethan, It's time for you to get married. I maintained a straight face while my hands balled into fists, since I had already prevailed. Ethan sprang for my cell phone, hissing, "Turn that off." A graying man wearing an Armani suit, one of the investors, seized Ethan's wrist in midair. "I think we'd all like to hear the rest." He spoke in a cold tone. Ethan went pale. Then came the final blow. Claudia is in the spotlight. No wheelchair. She was not met with a vacant stare. There was nothing mute or damaged about her. She said gently, "Oh, one more thing," and moved forward. "I can walk." The sound of her footsteps broke the startled silence. The mistress let out a gasp. The color faded from Ethan's mother's face. What about Ethan? It appeared as though he had just seen a ghost. What? How? Ethan's whole body went rigid with astonishment as he choked out. Claudia's smile grew angular. "Let me reintroduce myself," she said. "Claudia Sterling is who I am. I'm not a small girl with a disability. I own the majority of our father's estate. Did you know that? You have access to his resources?" It simply vanished. Ethan's knees gave way. His mother's perfect world crumbled before her eyes as she collapsed into a chair. "No, no." Ethan's tone faltered. "You can't do this, Claudia. You're my sister." "And Claire was your wife," countered Claudia. "But you had no problem destroying her, did you?" His mother's eyes were glistening with tears. However, I felt nothing. I lowered my voice so that only Ethan could hear it as I leaned forward. "This is just the beginning." I then turned to leave him to sink in the wreckage of his treachery. Chapter 4. The Ultimate Revenge. 520 words. The diner went silent as soon as I heard Ethan's final words of treachery on my phone. Everyone looked at Ethan. The truth was now known to his coworkers, investors, and even the unidentified woman he was wearing. Ethan's face lost its hue. His mother, normally calm and graceful, seemed to have taken a smack. I took a moment to appreciate the quiet before moving forward. "Well, that was enlightening, wasn't it?" Ethan bounced back fast. He leaped out of his chair, knocking over a half-full wine glass. Red, like blood, covered the spotless white tablecloth. "Claire, the situation isn't what it looks like." I interrupted him. "Oh, so you didn't just tell your mother that you were divorcing me to take my money?" His jaw dropped, closed after that. Then, like a fish struggling for breath, it opened again. His mother dabbed at her quivering lips with her napkin. "Claire, dear, let's be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I laughed sharply and without humor. "You mean the way you two reasonably planned to throw me away while keeping everything I worked for?" One of Ethan's biggest investors cleared his throat across the table. He was a strong man in his 50s, his eyes icy and calculating. "Ethan," he said in a steely voice, "is this story true?" Ethan's mouth moved. His gaze flitted over the space, searching for a way out. "No, it's just a misunderstanding." But Claudia got up before he could delve any more. Then she started to walk. There was a slow, methodical step. Then another. The room echoed with gasps. With a choked gasp, Ethan's mother fell back in her chair. Ethan's hand clenched around the table until his knuckles were white. "You can walk?" Claudia gave a charming smile. Surprise. Physically, Ethan's mother flinched as though she had seen a ghost. "How long?" With a voice that was no more than a whisper, Ethan croaked. "A year," answered Claudia nonchalantly. "However, I believed it would be best to keep it a secret. It prevented the two of you from pestering me much, after all." His mom appeared ill. Her flawless plan had just fallen apart in front of her. With a silky voice, I leaned in. "Ethan, did you really think you could betray me and walk away untouched?" He made a small line with his lips. I looked at his investor. "You wanted proof of fraud, right?" A folder containing the documents Claudia and I had gathered was passed across the table. Phony company reports. Offshore accounts that are hidden. Debt to a secret firm. The elder man's expression darkened as he turned the pages. He looked up at last. "We have terminated your contract, Ethan. Additionally, I'll be informing the SEC about this. You're going to jail, not simply losing your company." Ethan staggered backward as though someone had struck him. "Wait. No, this can't." There were security personnel at the door. One person said, Should we escort him out, ma'am? I turned to face Ethan and met his beseeching eyes with icy coldness. Oh, yes. His cries continued to reverberate long after he had left the room as they pulled him away. Chapter 5, Karma and Divorce, 520 words. Ethan writhed in his chair across from me as I sat in my lawyer's office, pressing my fingers against the glossy mahogany desk. He didn't resemble the strong real estate tycoon he used to be. Once perfectly fitted, his outfit hung loosely on his body. Could you see his confident smile? Lost. His voice was scratchy as he begged, "Claire, we can work something out." Leaning back, I allowed the silence to linger. Allow him to perspire. He had everything 3 months ago: a successful business, the support of rich investors, and a wife he believed was too innocent to defend herself. And now? He faced the threat of bankruptcy, legal investigation, and the disintegration of everything he had built under false pretenses. I moved a pile of papers across the desk. Calmly, "This is the divorce settlement," I stated. "Sign it and walk away with what little dignity you have left." He grabbed the papers and looked at them wildly. He gulped. 50%? You're taking half? I chuckled quietly. Ethan, 50% of what's left. Your empire has collapsed. Your investors left. We are conducting an inquiry while your accounts remain frozen. You're fortunate that I'm not requesting more. His lawyer cleared his throat, looking as worn out as he did. It's a fair deal, Ethan. He was aware that there was no escape. Ethan reached for the pen with a trembling hand and wrote his name on the last line. The words, "There it is," I whispered. "The end of us." I felt a sense of release that I hadn't experienced in years as soon as his signature appeared on the page. I straightened my blazer and stood up. Oh, and one more thing. I took out one final piece of paper. Additionally, I had legally served Ethan's mistress. I was allowed to sue Claudia for damages under the statutes of alienation of affection because their affair began while we were married and because of her covert recordings. I said, "She owes me 6 figures in a kind manner. Maybe you two can split the cost." Ethan's face went pale. His voice, barely audible above a whisper, uttered, "She left me, took what money I had and ran." I cocked my head. How poetic. Nor had his mother escaped unharmed. The revelation of Claudia's condition turned Savannah's upper class against her. She severed her ties with the nonprofits she had chaired. The same people who had used her to dominate and influence others now viewed her as a fraud. "Where's dear mother now?" With a mocking tone, I asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Gone. Departed." She was too embarrassed to reveal her face. I grinned. "Excellent." Ethan called after me as I made my way to the door, his voice brimming with desperation. "Claire, wait." I turned and furrowed my brow. "What?" His mouth quivered. Do you think we could ever?" I chuckled. Out loud. Chilly. Final. "No, Ethan. We could never." Then I left him in the mess he had created for himself. Karma is a belief held by some people. I think I should deliver it myself. ChatGPT.NOI. Chapter 6. The Last Door, 520 words. There was a tentative knock on my office door. Feeble. The situation is desperate. Before I even looked up, I knew who it was. With a smooth voice, I said, "Come in." Ethan Montgomery, the man who once believed he could ruin me, was standing there when the door creaked open. However, the man before me was not the haughty, inebriated husband I was familiar with. His once polished shoes had become scuffed and filthy, and his fancy suit had become ill-fitting, transforming him into a shadow of his previous self. His eyes had gone from being full of arrogant superiority. "Claire," he stepped forward and rasped. I extended a hand. "Stop wasting my time. Could you please share the message you came with?" He took a deep swallow. "I need help." Slowly, I put down my pen to observe the pitiful man in front of me. This was the man who had previously dismissed me as interchangeable and insignificant. The man who had planned to abandon me with nothing was suddenly without anything. "You need help." I tilted my head and repeated, "That's intriguing. Because, as far as I can remember, you felt very at ease planning my demise." He flinched. He whispered, "I lost everything, Claire. My mother had to sell her house, and I lost both my job and my money. In fact, he swallowed hard, even her. Oh, the mistress. She left you, didn't she? I leaned back in my chair, pondering the situation. It didn't take long for her to realize that without your money, you were nothing. He nodded, humiliation burning in his face. His words, "I have nowhere to go," were honest. It was there, the instant he was forced to confront the truth of his demise. I got up and walked around my desk slowly, my heels clicking on the marble floor. "I was a bad lottery ticket, you once said," I said. "That you'd find a way to squeeze every penny from me before throwing me away." Ethan's expression fell apart. "Claire, please." I grinned. The smile was deadly, cold, and sharp. "Now? It is you who is pleading." How the roles have been reversed. There was something almost terrifying in his eyes. He was aware. He was fully aware of the impending event. I turned to the intercom in my office and pressed the button. "Security, please remove Mr. Montgomery from the building." 2 tall security officers showed up in a matter of seconds. Ethan went into a panic. "No, hold on. Please, Claire. I only need a small loan. I need a place to stay. I promise to reimburse you." I approached him so closely that I could smell the despair on his face. "You already owe me more than you could ever repay," I said. Then I took a step back. "Get him out of my sight." The guards grabbed him by the arms and pulled him to the door. He screamed my name while he thrashed, his voice cracking. "Please, Claire. I apologize. I apologize." I didn't raise my eyes. Rather, I faced Claudia, who had been quietly observing from the office corner. "Are you ready for our next deal?" I inquired. She grinned. "Always." With that, I closed the final portal to my past. Forever. The strength of justice and self-respect. The people we trust the most in life are frequently the ones who betray us. The true lesson, however, is about regaining our power rather than seeking revenge. Claire's story teaches us that we cannot compromise our self-worth. Rather than begging or fighting for love after rejection, she took charge, gathered proof, and let karma take care of the rest. This story serves as a reminder that dignity is vital to many people in 2025, particularly to older generations who have experienced deceit in relationships, families, or the workplace. Staying away from poisonous people is a sign of intelligence, not weakness. The best retaliation isn't always retaliation at all. Those who have betrayed you must watch you rise from the bottom, as the stakes are becoming increasingly high. Never undervalue those who are quiet, patient, or whom you perceive to be weak. This is due to the possibility that they might hold the final card when the time comes.